Well, I just finished rereading The Hunger Games, so time for another series that I plan to be one video. We got too big for one. My thoughts on my favorite Hunger Games installment by far, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This will be 3 parts, but unlike my Skywalker Saga videos, will not reference each other or be under the same series title. Here's part 1, my general thoughts, review, why it's my favorite, etc. It's my favorite for a myriad of reasons, although I think the obvious one is that its premise naturally interests me the most. Suzanne Collins said that it's based on the state of nature debate, the question regarding if people are good or bad. Personally, I have a very firm belief that people are good, just like Lucy Gray Baird. Growing up in a war zone where everyone is a threat, constantly starving, constantly scared, only helped by the remaining family who did their best to raise her, she saw the worst the world had to offer, what it did to everyone involved, and how hard it was on everyone involved, and decided that people are naturally good and anyone who acts otherwise was affected by their environment. Coriolanus Snow, for example. The other side of this coin, growing up in a war zone where anyone could be a threat, constantly starving, constantly scared, only helped by the remaining family who did their best to help raise him, he saw the worst the world had to offer, what it did to everyone involved, how everyone used, killed, and turned against each other in a lawless land, and decided that people are naturally evil and anyone who acts otherwise has special privilege, looking at you, Sejanus. Corio and Lucy Gray are both perfect foils for each other that represent both sides of the state of nature debate, which naturally piques my interest. Yes, I firmly stand by people are good, but I think Ballad has a much more nuanced take on it. I think Ballad says that people are what they see. Corio, for example, sees the worst in everyone. He assumes the worst in everyone. He never unlearned, if I let my guard down, my neighbors will eat me. And if you assume that everyone is out to eat you, figuratively or literally, you will do everything possible to stop that from happening. If you see everyone in the world as selfish, evil, violent, lying manipulators, you will become a selfish, evil, violent, lying manipulator. But if you assume the best in everyone, like Lucy Gray, you see everyone as somebody worthy of love and respect and kindness, you will become the person worthy of love and respect and kindness. Does that make sense? Am I explaining this right? Anyway, there's a lot of reasons why I love Ballad and why it's my favorite Hunger Games installment. That's one of the main ones, of course, but there's still the debate of book versus movie. What do I prefer? Well, that depends on what I'm looking for. There are plenty of things I think the book did better than the movie, and vice versa. I'll name roughly 3 of each. To start, I think Corio and Lucy Gray's relationships with each other characters, and the philosophies they represent are done better in the book. More blatant, consistent, explained, and paced. For example, their relationship with each other, they kiss in Chapter 13 before the games start, which helps establish where they are at this point, and feeds into the I want to marry somebody I hate tangent at the end. Because in 13, it's the, aw, she likes me, and I'm happy about it, and I see why this makes people crazy. Their point of view in the world regarding people's state of nature is also much more clearly defined, like how clear it is that Corio's constant paranoia stems from the rampant cannibalism in his childhood. Their relationship with other characters is, I think, the most obvious improvement in the book regarding their relationships. That brings me to the second thing I think the book did better, which is most characterization. Plenty of exceptions, but for example, Festus Creed, my favorite of Corio's classmates by far. The movie turned him into a stupid, superficial, selfish brat when he was always the normal person, the weirdly wholesome and supportive character. He playfully teases Corio about the kiss in Chapter 13. He cheers him on when Lucy Gray ends up surviving. Corio once refers to Festus as his best friend. Lysistrata selflessly sent Jessup her water without Corio having to convince her. Corio's resentment of Sejanus, his privilege to be sentimental, is much more clearly stated, etc. All the Covey relationships are better defined, nearly every 1 in 12 is better explored, thus the stakes are heightened. And a lot of that is due to the thing I think the book almost always did better than the film, which is pacing. It's slow at times, but there is room for everything to happen. Like many genuinely hilarious bits, I'm disappointed didn't make the cut of the movie. Looking at you, page 86. Almost everything's fully explained, it's highly detailed, all characterizations, thematic elements, plot points, feelings, background, and everything else is allowed to exist and intertwine with everything else, creating the haunting, conflicting, nuanced tale I cherish. But some parts of it, some of my favorite parts, come from the movie variant. I said most characters are better in the book, but I think there are at least 2 exceptions here. The less obvious, I think, are the tributes. Reaper, for example, in the book was a nutjob who maybe had a point, but in the movie, he's maybe the most powerful character, taking out anything he sees unjust, humanizing the tributes, and going out with his head high, doing what's right. Coral is much more sympathetic, too. Her death is one of the most tragic in the whole film, and while she's only a brutal, unsympathetic killer in the novel, The more obvious example, though, to me, in my favorite part of the film, who else but the leading man, Coriolanus Snow. Now, I'm not going to dwell on Corio for too long, because I am making a dedicated video on him, why he's my favorite and such, but I think the reason that many things were pushed to the side in the film was because it was so focused on him. Why he is who he is, starting his turn to the dark side earlier, illustrating his paranoia, exactly where he's sympathetic, etc. Not only does the script emphasize his feelings, fears, and skills so much more, but Tom Blythe is perfect at portraying all of it. I would argue that, as great as Corio is in the novels, that Donald Sutherland defined him, lobbying for more scenes in the first one, for example, making him terrifyingly chilling yet humanly vulnerable villain we know him as. Nobody should have been able to touch that legacy, but Tom Blythe ran circles around it. Not in the, oh, he did it in so much better way, but in the way that adds on to what's already there, makes it better. I know I keep fangirling over him, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was completely warranted. He adds to Corio's human vulnerability without softening the horrible way he thinks, and I love it. And I love the script as well for this. The pacing of his development, like how he kills Bobbin, for example, is much more consistent and dramatically improved. And I think there's no scene that proves this more than the biggest improvement that the film makes to the story, the ending. In the book, it's all in the last 20 pages? It feels, to me at least, like some timer went off and he was like, oh right, I have to be super evil now, let me just shoot, okay, Lucy Gray. I mean, she's there and I have a gun, so yeah, okay, let's do it. Whereas the movie builds to it. He knows that she's suspicious of him, then she keeps talking as if she's gonna tell on him, mysteriously leaves, all very much feeds into the paranoia that defines him, that we established with his prior kills, what he acts on. So you can see it all come together on this one terrible yet sensical decision. It builds, it fits, it makes sense, and it causes a sense of doom for the rest of the story, which hits especially well in his scene with Dr. Gall. So now I've shared one of many reasons that Ballad is by far my favorite installment of this series, why I find both variants to be different but equal, all for general review. I have two more, shorter, probably more fun segments left. One is an interview with my dad who doesn't like the Hunger Games but was willing to watch Ballad with me, but first, speaking of the ending, what do I think happened to Lucy Gray Baird? My theory is a decently common one, but I want to put my own spin on it with some non-spoilerly evidence from the other installments. I think she is alive, and I think she is pregnant with twin girls fathered by Corio, one more like her, and one all too much like him. Now my dad and my kind of sort of grandma, long story, took the same issue with this theory. Actually, to directly quote my sort of grandma, I didn't think they did anything. Which is a criticism I never quite expected, because I just assumed that was implied. I don't know about you, but I thought that you don't invite somebody to the cabin in the woods where nobody can see or hear you every weekend unless you plan on doing things in the cabin in the woods where nobody can see or hear you every weekend. Especially when we see the inside of the cabin in the woods where nobody can see or hear you, and there's not much to do in there except the person who invited you to the cabin in the woods where nobody can see or hear you every weekend. So even if Lucy Gray didn't get knocked up, she definitely seems to find a different kind of snake to hide in her pocket. I'm sorry. I've been sitting on the joke for about 2.5 years now, and I've only been able to pull off one other time due to how much setup it takes to be funny. I'm sorry I had to say that again. Thank you for putting up with my nonsense. But anyway, on to evidence number 2. Page 200, paragraph 2 of Sunrise on the Reaping, no spoilers, is entirely dedicated to how sometimes in 12 a district girl will fall for a peacekeeper and ends up with a baby and what happens to her afterwards. Now, this doesn't say anything about Ballad directly, but that's a weird paragraph to include if you're not trying to insinuate something about the only district girl peacekeeper relationship that we know anything about. And lastly, the entire character of Burdock Everdeen, who's implied to be connected to the Covey on his mother's side, so knows all of their songs, also not to mention the Covey Love Color, and Everdeen's not too far off from Evergreen. I think Corio got deployed to 12. Lucy Gray asked if he wanted to go to the cabin in the woods where nobody could see or hear them every weekend, and, well, strange things did happen here, even if he didn't include what I thought was implied intercourse, because that's where he betrayed her and ran off to become president. She survived the betrayal, and around the 11th game successfully delivered their twin girls, one more like her, the other all too much like her absentee father. I don't think she'd give them either the Baird or Snow name, all to protect them and herself from being found out and connected to everything that happened, although they likely did have Covey names. The first would eventually migrate back to 12, back to her family, and eventually Evergreen became Everdeen, the name she'd pass on to her son Burdock, who also got her musical flair, all the traits that would end up with his daughter, Katniss Everdeen. The other would become very resentful of Coriolanus Snow, the man who traded their whole family for everything he ever wanted and vowed to take it all from him. And as you've probably predicted at this point, she became President Almacoin of District 13 and leader of the rebellion. Now, the reason I like this theory so much, it's not exactly about Lucy Gray. She's a mystery, and I'm fine keeping her that way, but I like what it means for Corio. We know that he wants Lucy Gray in his life, that he plans on having kids, and he's also really wants recognition, to matter, to have the only thing that'll satisfy his paranoia, which is power. As Casca pointed out, it's very convenient that for most of the story, he didn't have to choose between these two things. But the second he does have to choose, he chooses to betray her and to satisfy his paranoia. If he didn't, he would have just had Lucy Gray and 2 kids, half of what he always wanted. But because he chose to betray her, he created his own downfall and ensured he'd never have everything. Plus, on a lighter note, that means there's totally an interpretation of the Rose Garden scene from Mockingjay, assuming he's found out at this point, where he's basically telling Katniss, "Aw, look at my little girl. She's even more evil than I am. I'm so proud of her." Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, interviewing my guest star, my dad who doesn't like the Hunger Games but was willing to watch Ballad with me. Alright, thanks for coming on my channel, Dad. I see that you have watched Ballad once 2 weeks ago, circa recording this. Have you had any thoughts on it since?
No.
Fair enough. Okay, question number 2. When we finished the movie, you said your favorite character was Reaper. Is this still the case?
Can you remind me who Reaper is?
Is a tribute who buried anyone under the flag, and then he died sitting up with the snakes around him.
Yep, I thought he was my favorite character.
Right. Do you think Coriolanus was always going to be evil? Was he always this way, or did something change at some point in the story?
Do you mean, was he always evil since he was like a little kid, or from the beginning of the story?
Yeah, since was he always destined to be evil? Is he inherently evil? Did something change within the story?
I don't know if I think that he is inherently evil, or that he started evil, but I think by the beginning of the story, he's definitely on the path already.
Okay.
So I think if he, maybe when he was born or a little kid, like when he saw somebody eating somebody,
Yeah.
I don't think he was destined to be evil yet. But he was already doing pretty evil stuff at the beginning of the story, lying to people and like conniving people, and what else was he doing? He was like trying to convince everybody he wasn't poor.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No problem breaking the rules for his own selfish needs.
That's a good
from
point.
From the beginning of the movie. So I think from the beginning of the movie, he was on that path.
Okay. Follow-up question on that. Was he cheating out of his own selfish interest, or was he trying to save Lucy Gray?
At the beginning of the movie, he didn't know who Lucy Gray was.
That's a good point.
So I think the first one. You could probably say he was doing it for his friend / grandma mom person.
Yeah.
Aunt lady.
Grandmam and then Tigress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it also seemed like he was doing that for himself as much as anything.
Alright, yeah, I can see it. Okay, did Corio and or Lucy Gray actually love each other? Were they using each other? Was it one-sided? Etc.
I don't know if I have a good read on Lucy's deal. She seemed very... Like, I thought the movie was going to be maybe about her having to warm up to him. Like, she didn't trust him, and then eventually he won her trust, but she, like... Immediately was like, yeah, great, like, we're best friends now. Which surprised me a little bit. It seems like he really did like her. I don't know if that's because he did some things to help her, and then that worked, but it seems like he really did care for her.
I would agree with that.
I have less of a good answer about Lucy. I'm not certain if that's just how she acted to everybody, was just like kind and nice to everybody. Or, I mean, by the end of the movie, they were like hanging out in the fields, holding hands and stuff. So I guess they liked each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I could side with it. Okay, any thoughts on the other two main characters, Lucy Gray and Sejanus?
What do you mean?
Like, Corio's obviously, like, the leading man, but there's two other very important, Lucy Gray and Sejanus. Any thoughts on...
my thoughts on Lucy Gray. Yeah, she seems like a good lady. I don't know. Sejanus seems like a good character too. I liked him. Seems like he was out for the right stuff. He wasn't very strategic.
No.
He could have maybe used...
made better choices.
He could have used some of Snow's strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, if they would have worked together, that would have been nice, but very annoying. Right, I'm going to list 6 major characters, and you give me one word to describe them.
Okay.
Let's start with Dean Casca Highbottom. Peter Dinklage.
Oh. Tortured.
Ooh, okay. Dr. Volumnia Gull.
The lady.
Viola Davis, the one with like the snakes and everything.
Like Twisted.
Ooh, you're coming up with way better answers than I ever would have.
I doubt that.
Tigress Snow.
Is that the friend?
The cousin, yeah.
I'm having a hard time with that one because I don't remember that much about her.
Fair enough.
Background? Like she's kind of a background character. Like I don't.
Okay, I can see that. Sejanus Plinth.
One word. Naive.
Oh, I could definitely agree with that. Lucy Gray Baird.
Gregarious.
Oh, I don't know that word. Can you?
Yeah, it means like she's like jovial and like easy to get along with and kind of a big personality. Like she's somebody that would, on their way to being adopted in the Hunger Games, would stick like a snake down somebody's shirt and then go up on the stage and sing a song.
Yeah, and last, I'm sure you could have predicted this, Coriolanus Snow.
Conniving.
Ooh, nice. Pretty good. Alright, thanks for interviewing us. Thank you for letting me interview you. Any final words for the audience?
Nope.
Alright, thank you. Thanks for watching, everyone. I appreciate you listening to me on why Ballad is my favorite, how I think both variants compare, my answer to the mystery, and special thanks to my dad for sharing his thoughts on the story. Let me know yours, and as always...
The chat up line, is that a rose on your arm, or are you just happy to see me?